There we go. Go media. Um, so the red words are addictions. They are, I call them addictions because they do what addictions do. They don't give you anything. They pretend to give you something, but they give you emptiness and they make you hungrier and they make you do the more so you get the thing back, but you don't get anything and you just get on a vicious cycle. So the more I looked at them, the more I decided to call them addictions. They pivot to a practice. And we all know, I mean, like practices, right? We practice to become the thing because we know what we practice is what we become. What we practice is our character, right? This is like, we know this from any modality that we've been part of. Practice is what we become. So alienation to connection. The war economy, capitalism thrives on alienation because it can use you, because it becomes the thing. Oh, I'm the answer. You know, I'm going to alienate you and then I'm going to bring you in. It's, you know, the really horrible thing about the war economy and about the war machine and about those that are the manipulators of it is on purpose. They go in and grab you at the most beautiful place of your heart. They grab your empathy, they grab your desires, and they hook it and grab you and use you. And it's horrific. It's just really horrific. And it's on steroids. As we know, we just live in, I think, a toxic waste dump of so much manipulation and lies and, you know, all the things that take us away from each other. So alienation to connection. So it's not about breaking the addiction. It's about just pivoting to connection. When you feel that, it's like, that's not who I am. I'm not alienation. I'm connection. And you just go find what connection can look like. I mean, that could be going to the coffee shop and having a conversation with someone. That could go to like, I'm going to go work in the soup kitchen today, or I'm going to, you know, like I'm walking down the street, I'm going to look in somebody's eyes. It's just like, you'd be amazed as you start to pay attention to these pivots and you think, what's this going to look like when I do it? It's going to look like something different when each one of us does it, but it's going to speak to us. We're going to feel it in our body. We're going to feel the difference. And then it's like, oh, how do I make more of that happen? How do I make that more of my day? How do I move from that? Self-directed to community engaged. Okay, so we live in the super self-directed universe of the United States of America, when everything that is beautiful and smart and warm and nourishing happens in community. We can't see ourselves. We see ourselves through each other. And we get to then tell ourselves a bunch of stories about ourselves that then make us really stupid and dumb and disconnected and more disconnected. And it's a vicious cycle. Community is how we feel love and feel human and can just be messy together. And all that messiness that doesn't need to be a story of how good we are or like how perfect we are or whatever stories we have to tell ourselves to think we can get through a day. That, you know, have been fed to us by this culture that is the war economy culture. Competition to interdependence, transactional to relational. This one's hard, especially for the young ones. Very hard. We have just been taught to be transactional. So bad, so bad. We look at people as transactions. We look at everything as a transaction. And how to be relational. We at CODEPINK, this is one of the hardest things we run into, because it's like, I need to get this thing done. And some thought that it has to happen out of transaction, but when it happens out of relational is when it's actually going to give what you want back. Because the transaction doesn't feed anybody. It doesn't feed you. It doesn't feed the reader. It doesn't feed the listener. It just becomes the robot-y thing. Which goes back to the AI thing that I sent you today. What's his name, the actor? Keanu Reeves was having a conversation with Musk about AI. And Musk is saying everything had to be technology and and everything was going to be solved and we're all going to get. And Keanu just said, but where's the human? Where's the feeling? And I think that's where we connect as humans, is in the feeling. He said something so beautiful, like, yeah, you can make, oh, he said you can make all the art. The art's going to be amazing, better than ever before. And he said, how could art be amazing that doesn't come out of loss or love or the real feeling of what it is to be human? Isn't that what we're telling in the story? Isn't that what we're telling in the play or the piece of art of the thing we felt and saw and the wonder of it, the, you know, the discovery of it through only these eyes, that then someone else can have an experience of that from? And so I thought it was wonderful that that got to be had. But that's the transactional relational conversation, that we've forgotten the power of relational, that it is why we're here. It is what really, it's like sitting around the fire and telling stories was how we connected with each other. And we've lost our way from what's just juicy and beautiful and wonderful. And play is one of the other things we've lost our way from. Apathy to engagement, quality to quantity, distraction to attention. You know, most of these you can just read through them and say, yes, yes, you know, oh, I see that. Control to empowerment. We live in the control, like, and scarcity to abundance is another one of the core features of capitalism. You know, it's like they write it. It's like we have to create scarcity so everybody will just be our soldiers, right? When people say they're going to end homelessness in their community, I'm like, are you getting rid of capitalism? Because it thrives on that and it's not going to let you get rid of homelessness. So one of the, when I was early teaching this and I would ask for a lot of feedback and people would come back and say, I'd say, when you're in scarcity, just go give something away. Just find out your own abundance. Just go give something away. And the thing that I would get back all the time is like, I had no idea I lived in a field of generosity. Because as soon as they pivoted out of the scarcity kind of mental mode of oppression that was surrounding them and started to give something, they just opened themselves up to this field of generosity that we don't even recognize if we're not playing in it. Because we're playing in a field of scarcity, that's what we see. And so I always thought that was so beautiful because I live in a field of abundance. So when somebody feeds back someplace I forgot from 40 years ago, I always get so excited. Consumption to creation, limitation and imagination. Here's a space where, and we'll hear later from one of our speakers, consumption to creation. We used to be known for what we made and now we're known by what we buy. Is, I think, a really good way to look at this. It's like the making is so nourishing. It's like the idea of like being able to share this part of ourselves, the making, you know, I watched Marie get so much joy out of her making. We've separated ourselves from the things that give us fulfillment and joy, thinking we're doing the right thing, chasing some emptiness that never is going to feed us. Imagination. I think in the United States, we have no clue how narrow our worlds are, and that the war economy can't have us have an imagination because we won't stay in the box. We won't stay in the, but it's something to think about also for our kids, because it is a straitjacket on what living is. And it's one of the places to, like, when you're pivoting, to play, to joy, to imagining, to just letting it flow, and feeling that liberation outside of the boxes you live in, and maybe even just breaking the rules a lot, you know, of the ones that you really feel like, why do I agree to that? Play with it. Like, let your imagination take you somewhere new. Accumulation to sharing resources, which Transition Town I know can talk about later. Repression to revolution, problem solving to managing complexities. I think this goes to the control one also. It's just like listening, relating, not thinking that's a problem, but instead what's happening here that we be in organic relationship listening to. And then individualism to self-responsibility, individualism, the disease that we live inside of. I think self-responsibility comes out of the pivot to the habits. It comes out of the desire to create a more beautiful future. It comes out of like, I am no longer going to buy into this. I can see it. It breaks my heart, and I'm not going to let it take me down. I am just going to pivot into this. I have no idea what, creating a more beautiful future. What does that look like? What does care and sharing and equality and what does humanizing look like in this time where so many are dehumanized? It means everyone around us is dehumanized because they will allow the dehumanization. You have to be dehumanized before you dehumanize another. So that's my way of making it simple with no answers. It's really like, if you practice it, it's the unlimited is there, the infinite is there, the possibility is there that's been limited to this violent, extractive, narrow machine of destruction that we've, seen in culture so many times, but we don't know what to do. So we just keep signing up and up and up again. Well, now there's something to do. And and in a weird way, it's to be on an adventure. It's like the Wild Wild West. We're in the Wild Wild West again. And if we can't see that that's not what's happening, the structures are collapsing, and we're in a Wild Wild West. And so in that Wild Wild West, what do we want to create together? And so I guess I'll open it up to, let's hear some people that have been doing it with their lives. Because I think they're much better talking about it than I am, because they practice it every day. Oh, and while we're listening, I'm going to pass out a ceremonial chocolate heart from Ecuador, but there's no like anything dangerous with chocolate in it.
All right. So I'll bring transition up first. 10, 15 years ago, I got involved in this nascent community group that was just beginning to think about organizing in town. And in the last 15 years, they've grown into kind of a force of nature, starting projects that you may associate with Transition Town Media, or you may just know of as a community project here in media. I'll let Skip Shuda, who's going to be speaking about it, describe them, but they've become a really important factor in the community and the pleasure of living in this town. So Skip, you talk.
Thanks, Marie.
Sure.
And Jodie, thank you. I love the description that you had here on this bookmark. So, and sort of the felt sense that you have when I read down the right-hand side, you really do feel that in your body. And I think, it's so much of this on the left side is, grounded in fear, grounded, like we're programmed to be like fearful, like, oh, worry about this and protect this, and as opposed to really thinking about things from a perspective of the way nature and the world works, which is it's a world of abundance. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives we have going on in Transition Town, but I did want to mention just a little bit about sort of where our thinking is, in these, here we are in 2025, and we've really been enculturated into this promise of a global economy. Like, this is what the global economy is going to do for you, and we're all good consumers. We're all going to be, and we need to buy the cheapest items that do the most stuff for us. And when it doesn't work for us anymore, we throw it away and we can buy a new one. And we can. It's Amazon, right? Amazon will have it there. If I order it now, it might be there tonight when I get home. It's it's speaking to that sort of instant satisfaction. And that is very seductive. It's addictive. So when I look through this list, some of these really come out as, really stand out for me. Because one of the things that the challenge is now I've been working, I first got started with the Transition Town group back in probably 2011 or so, when I started coming to the annual planning where we do our brainstorming sessions. And Transition Town Greater Media has been around since 2009. And for those of you who don't know, the Transition Town movement came out of the UK. There is a guy named Rob Hopkins, who was considered the founder of the Transition Town movement. He's a permaculture teacher. If you don't know about permaculture, it's looking at patterns that we can use in nature, and focuses on earth care, people care, and fair share. So those are some of the principles of permaculture. And then this Transition Town movement was really to build local communities that embody these sorts of values. So that's we're fortunate that that people like Shari Stuber and Marie Goodwin got us started on this path way back in 2009 with a handful of people, and it's sort of blossomed into what it is today. And again, I'll talk about some of the things we're doing. But one of the challenges is, as you start to realize, boy, you really start to look at the problems that we're facing with climate change and our dependence on fossil fuels and this consumer economy, you start to realize that this is not going to work. We're way into overshoot, and you start digging at it. And what does that really do for us when we start to understand the dynamics? It brings up anxiety. It makes you nervous. It makes you fearful. And a lot of people are going to want to turn away from that. But we're really looking to engage so that we start to live a new way of being. We start to experience that day to day in our community, in our lives. So it's a practice. And in a lot of ways, what we have to do is create a tractor beam of a future. What is that future that's going to pull us to a new direction, away from this addictive, extractive consumer economy that we're caught up in? And the lessons that I've learned from that, it's practice, practice, practice. It's community, community, community. So we're constantly reweaving into new groups, into new projects, into new efforts. And it's really about being kind to yourself and trusting in nature. Those are some of the things that are really sustaining, but it's still a challenging journey as we think about this arc that Jodie talked about, and getting through the tsunami. We're all trying to build this arc together, and we're not really sure what our job is on this arc. So we're all showing up as best we can and trying to figure that out. And what we're trying to do is support each other as we go through that. So if I look through here, limitation to imagination. So I think about imagining a new future. What are those things? What are some of the creative exercises we can do as a group to actually envision new futures for our community, and for our families, and for our friends, and for our neighborhoods? Scarcity to abundance. I think this is a big one. One of the things that I know Marie was instrumental in getting started was the Free Store, which started like 11 years ago now. And the Free Store was really geared towards building an experiment in the gift economy. So rather than taking things that you would normally just say, oh, this thing doesn't serve me anymore, I'm going to throw it away and buy a new one, take it to the Free Store. And not only that, but maybe when you're at the Free Store, you can find one of those things that someone else has already put up for adoption in the Free Store. So it's a very vibrant offering that we have right now in the heart of media. And again, it's been going on for 11 years. It keeps things out of the waste stream, but it also builds community, and it gives people an example of what a gift economy is all about. We talk about problem solving and managing complexities. We have a resilience working group, and that's where we're really trying to like that. The people in that group are really trying to wrap their heads around what's going on in this world right now. What are all these things? Not so that we can solve those problems, but so we can understand all of these interrelationships. And it's really developing a sense of intuition about what's going to work, what direction you can follow, and really trying to help educate others about these discoveries, and then working together as a group to try to, how do we build things that are better suited to be resilient when we have a flood, or as we did last year, the worst drought on record, or there's some kind of political collapse. You know, these are all possibilities. So how do we build resilience around that? One of the things that I've learned is the best currency that you have right now is your relationships. So the relationships, you know, I've been talking to one friend of mine. We were talking about how to build a local economy, and you know, talking about local currencies, and you know, the idea of we had a time bank for a while, and had a pretty good run for a while, where people were contributing their gifts, and then they would draw upon the time bank to appreciate and use other people's gifts. But it required a lot of administration, and for various reasons, that didn't go on. So we've been talking about that, and it just kind of hit me. It's like, really look at your relationships, and that's going to really tell you what, you know, what your real sense of wealth is in today's world. And I think that's going to be continuously more relevant as time goes on. Other things that we do, we have something called Cool Blocks, where we work at a hyper-local level, and we actually get together with our neighbors once a month, and we have a conversation about water usage or disaster preparedness or energy use. And what really happens is we have a potluck party where we talk for half an hour or so about these other topics. We educate ourselves, but we really weave our community in. And my wife and I did that in our community over a year ago now, I think, and continue on with book clubs and film groups. And there's a group of us doing stream reparation work. And that just came out of that. It's just things that evolved organically from that effort. We have a fire circle. We have the Green Wagon Project that started here in Media, and started with another group, and now Transition Town is helping to steward that program, where we take native plants and we put them out on little green wagons, kind of like the little lending library, and people can come and take those plants and start to get into native planting right there in their own garden. So it's all grounded in abundance. The plants are free, and people make it, you know, they can go and just use it in their own garden. We have a film series. We do potlucks, fire circles. So there's a lot there. I will say, take a look at the Transition Town Greater Media website. If you'd like to learn more, you can sign up in the back also. We have our little newsletter there. And, you know, again, just practice, practice, practice. Be kind to yourself and build those relationships. So, thank you.
So building relationships. During COVID, I think everyone will resonate with this. I felt really trapped in my house and not able to be my full self, and spent a lot of time watching Netflix and TV. And I watched this show called The Great Pottery Throwdown that's actually filmed in England, where my ancestors are from. And I decided that when COVID lifted, I was going to go and I was going to learn how to make pottery in the way my ancestors did. So I began taking a class on Tuesday nights at our local community arts center, and stepped into something that I wasn't really expecting, which was a full-blown community around people doing pottery. And I've invited my teacher, Bob Deane, who's well known in town, who builds community around clay and pottery and teaching children and everything that goes with it. And so as a person, he lives a life that is really rooted completely in creativity. He's probably the most creative person I've ever met. And so I wanted him to come and talk tonight a little bit about what he does in our town. So.
I think of myself as somebody who's better at answering questions than talking a lot. So I may have to answer a couple questions to take up my 10 or 15 minutes. But I would start by saying it's really, I'm going to choose one of these, which is scarcity to abundance. So when I was in college in Bloomsburg, I worked at a convenience store and I would work third shift frequently. And that was some time for some really deep introspection. I was making $4 an hour. I was talking to a lot of truckers and people who worked in factories and having a great time and thinking, who am I? And what I resolved was I was going to be an artist and I was going to be a great artist. I was going to approach art the way an athlete approaches their sport in a very complete way. And I wasn't going to allow for failure to be any part of the narrative, which means I wasn't going to rush into it. I didn't know if I would ever be successful, but I would always create artwork that I was proud of. Flash forward about 8 years, I was the caretaker at the Community Arts Center, and I had reached a feeling of abundance that I felt scarcity 8 years previous. And as I reached the point of abundance for me, I started to look around and thought, what wasn't I getting that I could give? I want to do that. I want to be the person that I couldn't find. And a example of that, which I was really excited about, is when Dining Under the Stars happens in media on Wednesdays and they close down the street. We will set up a table, Drew and I, and we'll bring clay out and we'll play with clay. Because if I was 10 years old and my mom dragged me into media for some boring dinner at a restaurant and I was all antsy and there was somebody playing with clay, I would have been like, Mom, when we go to Dining Under the Stars again, that was really fun. And I love that. And I love it not just because I get to give back, but I get to have conversations and narratives. And I let people watch me, and I don't talk a whole lot. I have Drew, who I think everybody knows. He's the mouthpiece. And I just sit there and I work intently. I try to be the same artist in front of 20 kids that I am in my studio quietly. And if I look up and something is interesting to me, I will engage that person in conversation. And I think as a teacher or whenever, I always want to project abundance. I want to project abundance in my own life. I not only have enough of what I need, I have such a large surplus that if you're in the halo of my world, it'll be there. There'll be time, there'll be clay, there'll be opportunities to create, it will be there. And if I can resonate constantly with that, then people who can bear my sarcastic personality or edginess can really dip in and we can create a good time. And so I was like, okay, so when am I going to be a teacher? What am I going to do? I'm not going to sit around and talk a whole lot. I'm going to get everybody in. We're all going to start working. We're all going to start making, and I'm going to try to talk with everybody. And I'm going to engage everybody in both the superficial conversation, an artistic conversation, and a life conversation. I'm going to get to know everybody, and I'm going to ask them over the course of the time, what are your goals? Why are you here? If you're here one night a week as a stress reliever from work, that's great. I want you to have as much fun. I want it to be as relaxing as possible. If you want to grow up to be a potter one day, then I'm going to have a whole lot more expectations when you show up every week here, what we're going to need from you to do. And everywhere in between, everybody has the right answer. How do we, you and I, and you can ask me a question quietly. I'm probably going to answer it louder because I think everybody's probably going to be interested in the conversation. But we're going to begin a conversation about how do we move forward? How do we create the space for you to be on the journey that you want to be on? How can I help you do that? How can I answer questions you don't even know that you want to ask yet? Because I've thought about it for myself my whole life. And one of the things that was really interesting to me was how within classes, how close knit people become, how all these friendships form, and people like, oh, I planned my vacation to leave on Wednesday and to come back on Monday because I have Tuesday night class. Like whole lives and best friendships all developed. And it just develops over this slow, you don't have to make friends in a class. You can just come and have a great time. But if you can come and you're open and you're present and you're creating and you're rooting for everybody in the room that you're in, it happens almost inevitably. And then that is, to me, like, when I think of this and I think of what it means just working quietly together or loudly together in small groups or in large groups to try to create something. And it doesn't have to be artwork either. I love gardening. I love cooking. I love people who are excited about anything, acting, whatever it is. What's the story that we can share that can bring us together? And then how can we build on that in a larger group of people? Where do we go from there? And I think too, I like this idea of like really being grounded in the moment that we live in, being happy that we wake up and everything works, or that we don't have a headache, or that the car starts. But then also like, what else can we be doing? How do we, not big steps either, like little steps. Big steps are the things that stop us in our tracks and overwhelm us. What are little steps we can take every day? Sometimes it's just like, can I pay every bill that I have so that I don't have to think about them? But what are the little steps that we take every day to move forward? And then work on that. And I think like with Marie, like, she's Marie, so she has big goals. So it's like, okay, we got to do a lot of slotting in. We got to fit her into as many spots here at the Community Arts Center or with Clay as possible to meet her needs, and then watch it grow. And another thing that I realized, and I guess this would have been about 15 years ago, and I find this super satisfying, is you think of, identity. When I create a piece of artwork, it's me creating it, but on a deeper level, I'm just like, I'm this person in 2025 or 1985 or whatever, and we're reflective of the moments that we live in. We can't help it. And so it's me, or it's just like the time period that we're in, and I'm creating little mirrors of us to see it. But what I think is really neat is, as a mentor or a teacher, I don't like teacher. It's too like I'm here and you're down there. But as a mentor, you have little conversations with people, and if you can insert the right little ideas in their mind, you can watch how they can have a new idea, how their creativity can bloom, how they can give up a narrative like I'm not creative, or I'm not good with my hands, or I don't know what I'm doing. And you can let them let go, let them see their progress because you're mirroring it back to them. You're using words to say, that's really nice. Where did that come from? Who was that? And then you get to be like little fingers reaching into the universe, talking to people and helping them find their voices in whatever ways are possible. And then, and then just watching how that ripples, and then watching how, like, another thing I love is like in a class and somebody does something and we all kind of like it and we're like, I don't know where that's going. And then, and you watch them, and of course you're all like, I would do this, I would do that. And then you watch the idea bloom, and it's great, and then boom, and it pops, and then we're all excited and we're talking about it. And then like somebody else, like 6 months later, will pick up that old idea and they'll take it, and it all grows and evolves together in that spirit of like community, togetherness, or creating. Is there something else I should say, Marie? Have I taken up enough minutes? Okay.
I know, he's amazing, amazing human being. The next person to speak is my next door neighbor. And I had the honor of the day that I moved in, we like drove in with our car and like back in, and I looked at my neighbor and she looked at me and I'm like, I know you. And she had been a farmer working at our CSA, our community supported agriculture, that the farm down the road where we had gotten our vegetables for many years. And so Farmer Jen, my next door neighbor, works at a nonprofit called Greener Partners. And so she's here to talk about that work. She also sits on our borough council. So she represents me to our local government. And I'm very proud to have her as my neighbor and my good friend.
Okay. Hi. How many people here have ever grown something, either in a garden or a pot? Yeah. Well, I started out, I guess I was 27. I don't know, Mom, how old was I? 27 or 28? No experience farming. I didn't even have houseplants in my apartment in Philly. And I was like, I'm going to go work on a farm. But really, that idea didn't come out of the blue. It came out from opening my eyes and being aware to what was happening around me. So I guess this was like 2011. And I think maybe Food Inc. had just come out at some point recently, like around that time. And I was already a vegetarian, but that opened my eyes to the industrial farming system, industrial agriculture as we know it in this country. And I started reading a little bit more. I started investigating. I started going to meetings in Philly for urban ag, like for people who are farming in the city. And I was like, wow, there is something here. Not only is it about earth stewardship and moving away from that extractive practice of our agriculture that we have, but there's something transformative about this practice of growing food. There's something transformative about that practice and about the community that blossoms around it. And I was like, I want that. I don't know what it's about, but I want it. And I also want to know exactly what it means to farm organically, because I knew this idea of our industrial farming was toxic, was extractive, was basically just killing ourselves and the place where we live. But I wanted to understand what it actually meant to do something differently. So I didn't want to just like advocate like, oh, we should just eat organic, or you should farm organic, or sustainable, or regenerative, any word that is like, the big buzzword. I wanted to know what it actually meant to do the work. And come from that place when I spoke about farming or transitioning to something different. So that was my path. And then I linked up with Greener Partners, and Amy Johnson is here, who in some ways my journey has mirrored hers. But Greener Partners is a nonprofit that does food and gardening education, primarily with school-aged youth, but really with folks of all generations and backgrounds. Really honing in on this idea that direct connection with how food grown, that transformative experience can spark curiosity, joy, and community, and potentially a shift in how we are with one another in the world. So I just started farming, and I don't know how many in here are familiar with Robin Wall Kimmerer and her work. Yeah, so I mean, Braiding Sweetgrass, or her new book, The Service Berry, and she talks about an honorable harvest. She talks about reciprocity, right? And I feel like reciprocity is also probably a word that is similar to one that's on here. Relational, it's probably very similar to relational. But in every single system where we look when we talk about gardening, there's reciprocity, from the roots of a plant to the microorganisms to like the fungi, the mycelium, the air, the water cycles. There is reciprocity, and we can learn so much by observing, witnessing, and being humble enough to understand that we are not like at the top. There is intelligence that's beyond us. And I don't mean that in an alien way, whatever your beliefs are around that. But there is a natural intelligence in all of these systems that is alive and thriving and pulsing. And when I started farming, I started to become in tune and aware of that. And one of the great privileges in the work that we do at Greener Partners is we get to work with kids and we get to see those aha moments and literally the light bulbs going out, like going on when they pull a carrot from the ground and they hear those little root hairs pop. And I swear to you, that kid will carry that carrot around with them for the rest of the time on that field trip, because it's like something unique and brand new, and they experienced that coming out of the ground, whereas they may not have ever seen that before. So part of our work is reconnecting people to things that we've been disconnected from. We feel like we're constantly on screens. We're constantly, talking through screens. And this ability to use a space that is growing abundantly to connect ourselves to one another and then to the earth is really powerful. And I think that our work as a nonprofit with school children, we also work with doctors and hospitals and healthcare systems, reconnecting them to the source of life, really. I mean, to life-sustaining things like air, food, water. And we need all of those things. We need clean air, we need clean water, and we need healthy, non-toxic food for us to put into our systems so that we can thrive. I think that not enough, there's not enough opportunity for us to engage in those ways. But what I'm hearing tonight is that in media, we have a pretty special place where there actually are a lot of opportunities for us to gather with one another in community, like Skip was saying, and even at the Community Arts Center. Those are the spaces in which we can experiment, we can explore, and we can discover, and we can really like be ourselves in a way that allows us to generate different ideas and allows us to test those ideas with one another. And gardening spaces are a great example of that. Every single season is an experiment. You never really know, like, if something is truly going to work out, because you actually don't have control over it. You can only do the best to provide the best conditions for life to thrive. And I feel like these seeds for the local peace economy are the best conditions for our lives to continue to thrive. And like, that's how I see a work as a grower, as a facilitator of educational experiences. As somebody contributing to community. So yeah, I think I'll end there.
So I'm so happy we recorded this. I just want to say I was crying through all three of them. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And it's just such a model of, how different it looks, but at the root is just love and care, feeding each other, nourishing each other. And I just like feeling the joy and love you have, and just how much you can do with so little, and how little is done with so much in the war economy that's real. That relationships are the commodity that nourish us. So I wonder if you have any questions for me about this, or next steps, or about CODEPINK, or if not, we can be done. Cool.
So, this is my first time here. Cynthia Griffith, I'm a local journalist and I record on Friends. And I'm doing a piece right now on Gaza and the college protests. And I've been following that. So this is a We are the, we're business, flagship magazine, and we've been doing, activism and, interfaith dialogue. with the communities. So I actually came here originally to try to get a quote from an activist on Gaza and the campus protest from anybody who is part of your organization. And then I got here and I heard all of this speech about scarcity to abundance. And I am also a writer for Invisible People, where we focus on homelessness, housing scarcity, housing vulnerability. So I actually have a lot of questions about the talk to me about that. Invisible People, we're also a very good organization. We have over 2.5 million subscribers. We're the only nonprofit newsroom that focuses on homelessness in the United States. So anybody who wants to come to me and talk more about the gift economy, I wrote all these things down. The Green Wagon Project, the transition town, and how some of these things could possibly serve to reduce or possibly even prevent homelessness. I really liked, I did a piece, I'm sorry, I'm getting long-winded. I did a piece on zoning, where there's a state where they changed their zoning laws and they took a more communal approach to housing, and they completely reduced their homelessness. And this kind of talk, this is where it's how it started. I did research this for a really long time, but they began by shifting. The woman, what she was saying is they had to shift the mindset from an individualist mindset to a more communal mindset. And that's what I'm finding here.
Yeah, well, that's what's here. It's like, you walked in a little after we said, oh, oh. So, oh, sorry. So yeah, you've walked into the peace economy, which is another culture, which, you hear is like, we need to create that in the face of the war economy, which is in full scale visual, you can see it full scale with what's happening in Gaza and Palestine. You can, whatever, you can fine. And so what I was talking about is that we need to pivot away from what is very clearly extractive, violent, destructive, and not let it undermine us, not let us take it down, but to instead pivot away from it, take our power away from it, and create and cultivate the future. And that's why I have the bookmark. Did you get a bookmark? Okay. Let's read the 23 ways that we are addicted by the war economy. And then that we have to pivot to peace, which is a culture. These are cultures. They're literally cultures that we live inside of. And so the peace economy is the giving, sharing, caring, thriving, relational, resilient economy without which none of us would be alive. It's being a Palestinian. It's, anyone who's been in Palestine knows that it's a gift economy, knows that it's an economy of humanity. It's, which is why it's being crushed, because the war economy doesn't want, humanity to survive, because especially liberated humanity that knows how to dance and care and feed each other and do the things that, get unacculturated for those that become the, the soldiers in the war economy. So to answer your question about what's happening on the campuses, please everyone see the encampments. It's a inside look at what really happened. Our camera person was on the ground for 12 days. So it's what was really happening against the lies, because not that anything that's happening in Gaza should ever be allowed to happen, but what does help it be allowed to happen are the profound level of lies that it stands on top of, that are lies. And it's to ask, if someone has to lie, then it can't be true, right? So we've, those of us who watch this stuff, I see the light coming before it hits. But that young people in universities have always been the people that can name what's happening because they're not caught up in the structure of violence. It hasn't sucked them in yet. They're still questioning. They still have imaginations. You know, they're still in the space of becoming. And to be in an institution that is supposed to be committed to their imaginations, to their capacity to think and debate and question and, you know, reason, that they can see that the erasure of a people, that the murder of children and women and doctors and media people and ambulance workers and the full-fledged bombing of an entire, you know, space, if that they can say that's not okay and have their degree taken away and have their coming together in beauty. I mean, I was in like 20 encampments. They were so beautiful. They were all peace economies. Every single one of them was a peace economy. It was a giving, sharing, caring, thriving, resilient, relational community full of love and laughter and caring and teaching and sharing. You know, everything that we heard earlier, that's what they were. And they were everyone, and everyone was welcome. And then I was in them when they got attacked. And that violence was profound. And it was it was delivered by the heads of the universities. It was sanctioned by the heads of the universities, and it was horrific. And what's also followed is horrific. To erase students who like are saying the thing that is human is just a violation that we should all be screaming about. Even that is silent. And we know from the Holocaust, we know from everything we've seen is like, why do these things happen? Because good people are silent. So if you know that, it's your task to speak out. And these young people know that, and they're speaking out, and they are being punished. If that isn't fascism, if what we're watching while watching a genocide. So yeah, the peace economy, Palestine, the peace economy, the encampments. It's not going to be easy, you know, to create these things because they do break with the systems that hold in place the extractive, destructive, oppressive economy, like homelessness. The unhoused are how the system works because it creates enough fear for other people to like line up and do the right thing. It's the absence of the care for humanity. It's where care is missing. All those things that it's that 65% of your tax dollars get used on war and destroying the planet instead of caring for the people that need the extra care. And so, you know, and also in socialist countries, people live longer, they live healthier, they're better educated. I mean, better educated in the sense of they're smarter as like intelligent, you know, not like that they can regurgitate something, but they can think about it, that they can care, intelligent as humans, intelligent to the human, intelligent to what it is that creates conditions conducive for life. So, yeah.
I called my husband, I said, I don't know, it's a barn.
Well, we're also coming up on the first anniversary of the encampments. It's April 17th. So find a community. There must have been an encampment in Philadelphia. Yeah, a pen.
I've been researching this and talking to people, and there are students who've been penalized at Swarthmore College as well now for the encampments.
So stand, you know, here's the thing you can do. So at CODEPINK, We cultivate local peace economies, and we look at the war economy and like, we can't change it, but we can shine a light on it. We can scratch it. We can expose it. We can make these people that are getting away with murder not get away with murder without having to feel scratched, without knowing that they've been seen, exposed. I mean, if you see our videos every day, it's like we are exposing the violence. And then you get to choose to do with what you want with it. But we're not letting them get away with murder without in some way exposing it, shining a light on it, and then standing with those that are at the biggest effect of the war economy. And I think that's one of the first acts of the local peace economy. When people don't know what to do, I said, just go be with the people that are at the most effects of the war economy and listen. They'll tell you what you can do, and it'll be simple. It's like not complicated. So these students need to feel support. They need to feel that they're not, that there are people out there that support them. And, you know, in the encampment anniversaries, find out what's happening around you, go. All the universities are going to be showing the encampment film that day. If it's not there, I don't know if it's playing in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. I'll find out, and Marie can send it to everybody if it's playing here. The reason you want to read the words and watch the films is that it's when it cracks, you need to be of service. You need to be able to give people, I call it the breadcrumbs to stand on. You know, it's so much toxic waste, but when it starts to clear because there are whistleblowers that are starting to, you know, speak out, you need to be able to help people. And so the last thing I want to do to talk about the local peace economy is that when you start to do this work, and there's so many of you here already doing it, but you know, it brings up a lot of grief. It brings up a lot of grief about the world we live in, about the effects of the world we live in. It brings you to some grief. And so we have something we call the cycle of reconnection. You're going to go to grief. We have tools to help you. We have, you know, books to read, webinars to watch, communities to engage in that can support you through grieving. And then we have ways to care for yourself. That it's been acculturated out of us that we need to care for ourselves too, and we need to care for each other. And that needs to be part of what our days are spent on, the care. You know, when we say create home sweet home, you know, we don't, that's not in the efficiency, you know, to-do list and the war economy, but we need to take that time to care, like, you know, the soil, like feeding each other, you know, all of that. And then joy and celebration. And, you know, cultures that, you know, indigenous cultures are local peace economies. That's why life exists. It exists because we know how to do this. And, you know, indigenous communities have done it for millennia. But they baked into their culture rituals that took you through the grief, care, joy, celebration cycle. It was just ritualized into the culture, and all that has been stripped away. And so we need to bring that back. You know, we heard ways that you do bring it back, but it's important. It's important to be in the joy. It's important to be in the celebration. Those are part of what makes us human. And, you know, back to it's important to be in the play, the space where it's about nothing except just the magic of nothingness that always gives you a gift that we've forgotten how to do when, you know, kids haven't, but somehow as we get older, we forget how to play, which is a very important part of being human. So I don't know if I answered all your questions, but you have so many people here that you could catch that do it with their lives. And one of the things I say is that, so the workbook is to help people to go through the process. It prompts you, it has you question, has you review, it goes through all the patterns of from the addiction to the practice a little deeper. It has a cycle of reconnection. On your bookmark is a QR code that takes you to the website. You can download the book for free. I have them for sale for $20 tonight. You can work online for free. So it's there. And the website has a ecosystem of like 3,000 different local peace economy projects, because you've heard 3 here, but like everywhere, everyone does it differently because you're meeting the needs of where you live. And so there's that ecosystem. There's the cycle of reconnection that we kind of curate so that you can kind of find what you want right away, or you can deep dive into like all the things that are offered both places. And then we tell stories about the ecosystem and the care, and those are on our wiki. So there's a lot there for you. It's like, oh, what did I just hear about? And what does that really look like? And the future isn't so mysterious, actually. It's happening. You just heard it. It's happening. It exists. This is just to remind you that it does exist. It doesn't get a lot of media play. It's not in our culture, but it is there, and it's beautiful and nourishing and exciting, and manifests itself differently everywhere it is. So thank you. And thank you, Marie. And thank you, Media Pennsylvania, for inviting me. And thanks for all of you here online. Hi. Did you want to go into breakout sessions?
Yes, I have them set up.
Oh, okay.